So it's true. President Biden stumbles again, but this time it's over his words and his promises, not over his feet like he did at this Air Force Academy graduation. That's not what I'm talking about. But as you can see here, well, he's going to get back up and he's going to try again. Well, here's what I can tell you. President Biden, he has stumbled time and time again over the past 3 years. And the last time he just stumbled was inside this debt ceiling bill. This is going to raise the national deficit by $4 trillion over the next 2 years. Actually, over the next 18 months. This is a major problem, but it's also a major piece of legislation. This is ultimately going to benefit us here in the United States and the American people, but this has many progressives that are completely outraged. They are against this entire bill. Democrats said that they are, in fact, a little ticked off that they waited until the last minute and slipped something in that they didn't agree with and have been fighting for over the past few years, and that is permitting reform. This is what Senator Joe Manchin had to have included into this bill. Guess what? It was. This is why some are saying that President Biden has slipped up and he stumbles into all these different bills. He just falls right into them. For instance, we heard that Democrats were going to wait. They knew that Republicans were going to take control over the House of Representatives, but there was no rush. They didn't feel that they need to go and pass a partisan bill back in 2022 to ensure that the debt ceiling didn't become an issue. They didn't do that because why? Well, President Biden stumbled into this again and said that no, he is not going to negotiate. It will be a clean bill. His exact words, it will be a clean bill. It wasn't a clean bill. This is why Democrats are very upset. Now, we knew that permitting reform was something that Joe Manchin has been wanting and pushing for years, and it was finally pushed in and included into this bill. But reports are now indicating that the majority of Americans don't even understand the true benefit behind this. And again, yes, it will help us as far as being more energy independent. That's great. But what does this do for Democrats? Why would they even include this? Because did we absolutely need Senator Joe Manchin on board? No. We didn't need him on board because we would have actually passed this bill without Senator Joe Manchin, who's a Democrat but voted with Republicans. Well, here's what I can tell you. And over the past couple of weeks, we've been talking about, actually over the past few months, we've been talking about OPEC. What is OPEC doing? Well, OPEC is cutting production as we see oil prices fall, and they're cutting production in order to bring the price back up. OPEC would love to see oil prices at $85 or higher. Right now, we're a little bit over 70. Now, this is exactly what I've been talking about over the past, couple of weeks, is just wait until oil prices start to dip. Once they do, OPEC's going to come out, they're going to cut production again. That's exactly what they did over this weekend. They cut production by 1 million barrels of oil per day. It's starting in July. This is after they've already cut production by 1 million barrels of oil a couple months ago. So, as soon as this report came out, oil prices started to pick back up. In fact, we jumped from $68 per barrel up to $70 per barrel fairly quickly. And this is actually pretty important news, because this is something that Democrats have been pushing against. But according to reports, Democrats have already planned as to what they could see and what they are setting out against and for in this next piece of legislation. So here's what I can tell you. This entire Fiscal Responsibility Act that was geared to increase the debt ceiling, or technically suspend it in this case, it was geared to decrease spending and obviously keep the U.S. from defaulting on our debts. We accomplished one of those. Are we going to decrease spending? Not really, because our deficit is going to increase by $4 trillion over the next 18 months. But are we going to prevent a default? Yes, we already did that. Good job. Now, here's what is going to happen now. According to reports, according to multiple lawmakers, they say their next task is to increase taxes and bring in additional revenue. That was not part of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. That was not part of that bill. Democrats are now looking at this next bill, okay, the federal funding bill. This is for fiscal year 2024, which has to be passed by the end of September, or else the government would default. Well, this is why they are saying that this permitting reform was so important and crucial, because they needed to give Republicans something so that they can ask for something back. Well, here's what I can tell you. With the Biden administration attacking petroleum, or actually just the entire petroleum industry, on day one of them being in office, this has been a leading indicator of inflation. As we see oil prices go up, inflation tends to follow. It's nothing new. It's just historically that's what happens. Well, now the American people are struggling just to get by due to rising prices. This is for meat, this is for grain, bread, milk, eggs. It doesn't matter. Everything is getting more expensive. And Democrats want to do whatever they can to bring inflation back down. So, why is this so important? Well, experts believe that Democrats are attempting to bring down inflation through oil production. Get this, that Democrats are accepting of the fact that yes, we could do a little bit more. We've cut down on oil production. We're not seeing the American people buying electric vehicles. No, you're seeing prices of Teslas plummet. Yeah, it actually makes it where buying a Tesla might be a smart idea, a smart financial decision pretty soon. I say it might. But again, this isn't financial advice. Don't take this as financial advice. Do not go out there and buy a Tesla because prices are starting to come down. This is good news. But again, the U.S. government decided, let's give the American people up to $7,500 in a tax credit, because if we do that, they're going to all go buy an electric vehicle. And once they go buy an electric vehicle, this is going to hurt the automotive industry if they're not going electric. And it's going to benefit us as far as renewable energy, not going and spending more money on oil production. Well, Democrats are now coming out and saying that they just can't believe what OPEC is doing because they're cutting production. It's hurting us. But think about this for a second. If the Biden administration would just open up enough fracking rigs to produce, let's say, the 1 million barrels of oil that OPEC just announced they were going to be reducing, well, this eliminates that reduction from the announcement as far as what OPEC just announced in their reduction. We don't have to worry about that because we are producing more, right? But, and again, this is where things get very interesting, is if this kept prices stable, or if OPEC cut production by 1 million barrels of oil per day, we increase production by, let's say, 1.5 or 2 million barrels of oil per day, guess what happens to inflation? We see disinflation. It goes the opposite direction. And again, what's the number one thing that's hurting the American people today? It is inflation. So, according to experts, they believe that the Biden administration understands that they have very little wiggle room, and they cannot really work with Republicans in order to get a deal done if they're not giving Republicans something, which means the next big bill is going to be the federal budget for fiscal year 2024. They will need this to be a bipartisan bill. And if Democrats plan to get anything substantial included into this bill, they have to give in to Republican demands. And one of the things that Republicans have been demanding is to open up our oil production, open up pipelines. Do you notice over the past probably about 6 months, we've seen President Biden kind of take a step back. And even though he has promised that, yes, he is going to move away from oil, move away from that industry, he's actually stepping back into it. So based off of recent comments from the White House, from multiple White House aides, experts are now anticipating that a massive negotiation over federal funding is going to take place. This means we're likely to see additional permitting reform. Again, all that is it's just making it easier. Getting through all the government red tape, that's it. But again, it takes so long by the time anything gets done, well, it's not meaningless, but it doesn't mean as much as it did once before, when sometimes it's years earlier, years prior, that people are trying to do anything. This also means tax credits for lower income households are likely to be included. Additional taxes on the wealthy are likely to be discussed. Closing loopholes for large corporations is something that Democrats want to do, but at the same time, Republicans are adamant about getting the Trump tax cuts extended as well. Again, keep in mind, the Trump tax cuts end the exact same time the new debt ceiling suspension expires. So kind of working this in prior to that expiration date, that will be key. But based on what we're hearing from lawmakers, President Biden promised that the debt ceiling bill was only agreed to because he was backed into a corner. That was it. However, President Biden promised that this will not happen again. So right now, President Biden is stumbling into this next bill, but we're going to find out whether or not he actually does what he promised, and he is not going to be strong-armed into taking a deal that he does not agree with, which Democrats say we are fully behind, or are Republicans going to get the best of him? Well, we're going to find out very soon, because these negotiations need to start taking place immediately. But again, this is why 99% of people don't realize what's coming, because what's happening is everybody is trying to negotiate their own agenda. In the end, what gets put together is going to be a bipartisan bill. That's the only way this will be passed. And again, I promise I'll keep you up to date on all the latest news and updates. All you gotta do is two things. First off, hit the like button on this video. Also click that subscribe button so you never miss an update. And I will see you guys on the next one.